Presented by Listen Headlines, latest world news from trusted sources. Updating daily at 6 a.m. New York. New York Times World News.
October 31st. 5 o'clock America, New York. Fragile, delicate, free. Glimpses of circus life at sea. A photographer embedded with the sea clown sailing circus on the troops' journeys through the Mediterranean. Here's what he saw.
New York Times World News.
October 31st. 4:12 America, New York. Will Bolsonaro dispute the results of Brazil's presidential election? President Jair Bolsonaro has spent years attacking Brazil's democratic institutions. Supporters of President Jair Bolsonaro reacting as Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva took the lead in the election on Sunday night in Brasilia.
Mirror World News. October 31st. 3:53 America, New York. New Brazil president's 5 years under Bolsonaro, prison time and being buried alive. The new leader was serving a 12-year corruption sentence, but was freed in 2019 after a Supreme Court ruling which infuriated followers of the far-right Mr. Bolsonaro. Mirror World News.
October 31st. 3:46 America, New York. Brit tourist dies after leaving sea and feeling unwell at popular Portugal beach. A 55-year-old British tourist collapsed after getting out of the sea at the beach in Praia dos Alames, Portugal, and later was pronounced dead at the scene despite the efforts of paramedics and lifeguards.
Time.
October 31st. 3:44 America, New York. China's space ambitions are fueling competition and collaboration. At 3:37 a.m. Eastern Time on Monday, China launched the last key component of its space station, the latest step in the country's efforts to become a leading space power.
Wall Street Journal World News.
October 31st. 3:43 America, New York. Russia launches barrage of strikes across Ukraine. The strikes in Kyiv and across Ukraine knocked out electricity and water supplies in parts of the country, as the Kremlin intensified its attacks on the country's civilian infrastructure.
BBC News World.
October 31st. 3:12 America, New York. Ukraine war. Wave of strikes hit major cities including Kyiv. The strikes come after Russia blamed Ukraine for a drone attack on its Black Sea fleet.
New York Times World News.
October 31st. 3 o'clock America, New York. He's an outspoken defender of meat. Industry funds his research, files show. A UC Davis professor runs an academic center that was conceived by a trade group, according to records, and gets most of its funding from farming interests. Critics say close financial ties between the Clear Center at UC Davis and the industry it studies create the potential for conflict of interest.
Mirror World News.
October 31st. 2:21 America, New York. Kyiv rocked by about 10 feet huge explosions as Russia steps up missile strikes. We'll be bringing you the very latest updates, pictures and video on this breaking news story.
World News. Breaking international news and headlines. Sky News. October 31st. 2:08 America, New York. Q mayhem. Elation in São Paulo as Lula triumphs, but uniting Brazil will be hard. The diversity of a Lula crowd is really quite exceptional. It's a melting pot of Brazilian society.
Fox World News.
October 31st. 2 o'clock America, New York. Simply being a Christian is enough to get you arrested, in Iran, British government report. Amid a violent crackdown on Iranians' protesters, a new British government report details the shocking treatment handed out by the regime against the country's tiny Christian population.
BBC News World.
October 31st. 1:38 America, New York. Morbi Bridge collapse. Witnesses describe scene of tragedy. People who were at the scene when the bridge in India's Gujarat state collapsed told the BBC what they saw.
BBC News World.
October 31st. 1:16 America, New York. Brazil election. A moment in history as Lula returns. The leftist who led Brazil in 2003 to 2011 makes a dramatic return, but unity may prove elusive.
Washington Post World.
October 31st. 1:02 America, New York. Our Phoenix, Lula's ups and downs in Brazil defy belief. 4 years ago, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva's reputation and political future were in tatters.
Time.
October 31st. 0:00 America, New York. How global leaders are reacting to the news of Lula's election victory in Brazil. Leaders around the world have congratulated Brazilian President-elect Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, who won by a whisker in the South American country's runoff polls Sunday.